Good afternoon from a rainy Seattle. I hope the weather is better out there in Edinburgh. And sorry I can't be with you today, but it's a pleasure to be able to take the time to talk to you for a brief while about some technology or project that we've been working on here at Microsoft for a little while around what we call connecting the world with white spaces, and it has a connection back to Scotland actually, which I'll get onto in a moment. But hope you've had a great day so far, and like I said, it's a real pleasure to be able to present to you from rainy Seattle. So I will introduce myself briefly. My name is Steve Clayton. My job title here at Microsoft is Chief Storyteller, which means I basically have the best job at the company. I get to run around Microsoft, all of our 120,000 or so employees, all of the many projects that we work on here in the US and around the world, and really get to help to tell stories about the impact that Microsoft's technology has on all different communities around the world, whether it's individuals, organizations, commercial organizations, non-profit organizations. And the story I'm going to tell you today is possibly my most favorite story I've ever been involved in at Microsoft. Personally, I've been here just getting on for 20 years, worked for 13 of those years in the UK, and then moved to Seattle about 7 years ago to take on this role of Chief Storyteller. So let me jump in and tell you a little bit about this story around connecting the world with white spaces. About 3 years ago, a new CEO took over the helm of Microsoft, a gentleman called Satya Nadella, a long-term Microsoft executive who became the third CEO of the company, following in the footsteps of Steve Ballmer and Bill Gates. And about 2 years ago, Satya and our senior leadership team and a number of other people at the company decided it was time to renew and refresh and change the mission of the company. The company is about 42 years old now, and Microsoft's original mission statement was to put a PC on every desk and in every home, which in hindsight wasn't really a mission statement. It was more of a vision statement, and also something that was achieved probably about 20 years ago. People had PCs on their desks and in their home, and so it seemed like a good time to think about, well, what is our purpose in the world? Why is Microsoft? Why do we still exist on the planet after 42 years? And after a lot of thorough discussion, this is the mission statement that the company came up with: to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And each one of those words was chosen very carefully by our leadership team, that it really was a focus around how do we empower other people to do things with technology. This isn't a mission statement that tries to celebrate what Microsoft does, but it's a mission statement that tries to celebrate what our customers do. And our customers, really do run the whole gamut between individuals and organizations, from a school child in Kenya, which I'll talk about in a moment, all the way to the largest organizations on the planet. There was some discussion about whether we should say planet or universe. Recently, one of our HoloLens devices made its way to the International Space Station, so there was some debate around whether we should change the mission statement to say in the universe. But for now, we're keeping our ambitions on a planetary scale. And then this final piece around helping people to achieve more. It's not just technology for the technology's sake, but whether it's in education, whether it's in commerce, whether it's in creativity, how do we help people achieve their ambitions in support of technology? And so this was the mission statement that we sort of gave the company about 2 years ago. And a little over, actually just coming up on 2 years ago, we launched one of the biggest projects we've ever had at Microsoft. Windows 10 was announced to the world on July 29th, 2015, and it became available. And having been around Microsoft a long time, typically what happens when you launch a product like Windows 10, a product of that scale, you tend to go to or several of the large cities in the world: New York, London, Sydney, Tokyo, and you throw a party and you celebrate and you somewhat pat yourself on the back and say, this is great, look at us, we just launched this new product. But 2 years ago, our CEO made a decision to do something quite different. He said that I want this day, this important day for our company, to actually be a celebration of the mission of the company and to demonstrate that in a very literal way. And so we decided to go to Kenya, to a village or an area called Nanyuki, which is about 200 kilometers north of Nairobi. And so on July 25th, I flew out there a few days early. And then our CEO and a few other folks joined. And we joined to meet people like the two people you see on the screen here. Hopefully what you're seeing on the screen is the principal of a school, of Heehaw school in Nanyuki, a lady called Beatrice Morongo, and one of her star pupils, Tabitha, who we met a couple of years ago. And they're amazing people. Their school is it's a very basic school in a very rural area. Has about 200 children, ranging between I think around 8 years up to 16 or 17 years of age. And very very kind of basic school, but nonetheless a terrific school. And Beatrice is really an inspiring principal at that school. And we sort of went there to meet them, but also to see the piece of technology that's in the background on the right-hand side of the screen over Beatrice's shoulder. So if I can talk about that for a moment, this became, I think, one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen at Microsoft. And so just to set the scene a little, out in the distance, you can see the clouds, and just beneath the clouds, you can vaguely maybe see the outline of a mountain range or a hillside. And that hillside is about 15 kilometers away. So keep that in mind. And if we go back to the mast on the right-hand side, we work down that mast, and I'll explain briefly the technology that's on there at the top. You see a microwave antenna. Beneath that, you see a traditional kind of satellite dish. And then beneath that, you can see just the side of what is basically a piece of plastic that's about the size of a laptop or a laptop lid. And then this whole mast goes down into the ground at the back of the school and is connected up to a set of solar panels that brought both power and connectivity to the school. The thing that that third piece down, that sort of piece of white plastic, is called a TV white spaces antenna. And one of the gentlemen who worked on this piece of technology and installed this a few years ago, I thought he may be in the room there today. I'm not sure he is. A guy called Malcolm Brew, who some of you may know. And Malcolm has worked for a long time to bring connectivity to underserved populations, and worked with a bunch of other British folks out there, actually, Tim and Maggie Hobbs, who run a rose farm in the area. And they took it upon themselves to say, we would like to bring connectivity to this underserved part of the world. They didn't have great connectivity, and the connectivity they had was expensive. And so Malcolm had been working for a while looking at this technology and how it could be used in some of the the islands, the Isle of Bute and Isle of Orkney there in Scotland, to see how we could bring connectivity to areas that are under connected or not as connected. And he came across this piece of technology called TV white spaces. It was a technology that was invented a number of years ago by Microsoft Research here in Seattle, and we had tested it on our own campus. We have a very large university-style campus here at Microsoft with 100 or so buildings. And we've been testing this technology on our own campus. So a little bit about the technology briefly. I can't see the room, but I can imagine there are some folks in the room who are my age or similar age, and we remember when we used to have a mast and an antenna not unlike this on the side of our house, because in the good old days that was how you got TV signals before the advent of cable and satellite. But of course, that type of technology never really existed in any meaningful way in the continent of Africa. And so that radio spectrum that was used to deliver TV signals was never actually used. And so there's a whole set of radio spectrum that is available that can be used to, traditionally would have been used to deliver TV signals, very useful spectrum to have in terms of its range and its capacity to be able to deliver Wi-Fi signals. So I'll take you back to the hillside off in the distance there. If you think about the Wi-Fi hub that you have probably in your own home or in your office, a typical size is the size of a shoebox type thing, maybe slightly smaller. And that, if you're very lucky, has a radius of about 15 meters within your house. I have a couple in my own house just because of wanting to get better connectivity. So we all know the challenges of having good connectivity even within the distance of our own four walls of our houses. This technology is somewhat different in that it provides connectivity not over a 15-meter range, but over a 15-kilometer range. So literally that hillside out in the distance can now get connectivity, good connectivity, sometimes up to 8 megabits per second, which is pretty decent connectivity through this antenna. And so a few years ago when this technology was installed, it literally changed the lives of the people in this region, changed the lives and will change the direction of pupils like Tabitha that we see on the screen here. You can literally draw a line from almost the day this technology went into the school, and you can start to see the grades of the pupils rise, because they now have the same access to information that we have. They have access to Google, they have access to Bing, they have access to the Khan Academy, they have access to Wikipedia. The teachers have access to lesson plans in the same way that we do and have become very familiar with and accustomed to. So this very simple yet powerful piece of technology almost overnight changed the lives of people in this region of 30,000 people in Nanyuki. A little bit further down the road, towards Maggie and Tim's Rose Farm, actually probably less than half a mile from Maggie and Tim's Rose Farm, we drove down a dirt track and came across this installation. This is a shipping container, much like you would find on any dock or port in any major port in the world. It's the yellow piece here is just a standard shipping container, but it's slightly different in that this shipping container has been cut open. And you can see the mast that is connected here back up to the school that taps into that same connectivity. And the day that we drove by, this is basically the local internet cafe. And what you see in here is people who are there. We saw in the time we were there a range of different people, from students who are there doing their homework to farmers who are there researching, how they could get better yield for their crops or better prices for their crops. We met one gentleman there who was basically running a technical support business from this location, and the gentleman who ran this cafe at the time, Benson, introduced it to many people who this had become sort of the lifeblood in many ways of the village. That people would come and there were PCs obviously in this space and get connected to the internet in the same way that we just completely take for granted. And so in the space of 4 days, I think I saw one of the most powerful manifestations of Microsoft's mission really come to life. And this really wasn't about Microsoft's technology or Windows or Office or any of our other products. It was really about how can we work with entrepreneurs and fantastic folks like Malcolm and like Tim and like Maggie down there in Kenya to be able to bring some of this technology and innovation that we have to be able to really truly live that mission statement to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. This is a photograph that was taken in another school, actually, not too far from the Internet Cafe on the last day of our visit. And one of my favorite photographs were a bunch of PCs that Microsoft had donated to the classroom. We'd upgraded them to Windows 10, as you might imagine, on that day. And this is our CEO, Satya, having a chat with a couple of the pupils about their experience with the internet and technology. And I remember this young man who Satya is talking to right here. Satya used to run our Bing technology, our search engine technology, in one of his previous roles in the company. And I sort of remember the young man schooling Satya on some of the features of Bing. It was quite a fun afternoon. But this, for me, is just a great example of how technology truly can change people's lives. And it's one of the projects that I'm most fond of at Microsoft, and I had the great pleasure to work on. And so that's my brief story. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Whitespaces. The technology continues to be deployed. It's now in 5 continents, serving over 250,000 people around the world. And I think there may be some other folks there who are at the event today who are familiar with the technology and maybe can answer further questions if you have them. But I think we have time for a few questions. You can also see a video if you go to the URL that's on the screen here. We ran a global TV campaign on this project down there in Kenya, so you can check out that URL. But that's for my very brief talk today. I hope the slides came across well. I hope you can hear me. And if we have time and the opportunity to, then I'll be more than happy to answer any questions, maybe in the room.